Coming up on this episode of the Disaster Podcast, we talk with Kathy Casarin with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services about the current real estate market and what home buyers and home sellers need to know. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Matthew Lyons with Disaster Blaster, and we've got a great guest today, Kathy Casarin with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Kathy has been in the real estate industry since 2007 and is a wealth of knowledge about everything related to buying or selling real estate. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm excited to learn more.
Happy to be here, Matthew. Thank you.
So, you've been in the real estate industry for 18 years, so I'm sure you've seen it all.
Yes.
How did you get how did you get started in real estate?
I love that story. My dad was a contractor and my mom was a stay-at-home mom with three kids. So she was like the runner for my dad. So if he needed nails, like down in Exeter or Old Forge Lumber, Amity Lumber, she ran and I would go with her. So I would be on job sites, seeing houses getting built and, seeing the customers start to finish and the process of all of that. He's flipped homes, and so it's been in my blood, I think, since youth. And then one of my friends from first grade, she became an architect. So it's just the conversation of real estate's always been around me. I've done marketing and never really sold something as big as a home, but I had all the background, so I found my calling.
Very, very interesting. And now you've been selling homes for 18 years. So I mean that's incredible. What is your favorite thing about being in real estate?
I think that it's not 9 to 5, that, you're really helping people with one of the largest financial purchases of their lifetime, and it's something I do every day, so being cognizant of the fact that it may be overwhelming to them, and keeping it fun, entertaining, and educational, so, they don't get overwhelmed, kinda constantly reminding them of, should we run into a pitfall, I will come up with workaround solutions, and we could discuss which path they want to take. But whatever we come across, I've got, based on my experience, education, I've got paths for them to take, so there's not a problem. And obviously, when you get a recommendation or an accolade like that to share, um, people see that she's right. So that's a good area for me.
Okay. It must be an amazing feeling to be such an important part of helping someone through such a milestone in their lives as purchasing a home.
Hmm. Yeah, and I guess another thing, so I was pregnant and we were trying to sell on our own, and I was not a realtor, and we got killed on the price. Like, we just kept caving on whatever this guy said because he was like strong arming us. And I'm saying to myself, I don't want this to happen to me. I don't want this to happen to anyone in my family or anyone else. And I wanted to get my license. I wanted to know, what should I do? He wound up suing us for things that he did wrong. Like, he moved the washer and dryer and didn't unhook the hose, so flooded his downstairs, and tried to blame it on us. We saw that he moved drain tile because he had a bulldozer in the backyard and it kind of sloped down, and tried to blame the house flooding on us. And we said, didn't you have a bulldozer there? And the attorney goes, well, doesn't it look better? I wasn't, obviously, I wasn't an attorney. I never was, but I represented myself. Probably should have had an attorney, but I did win. Shaking like
Good.
a leaf. But I said, and the judge says that's not her point. You moved earth, you disrupted drain tile. Any flooding was now on him. And I'm like, I gotta learn this business. So, like, working with people like you and inspectors, attorneys, financial lenders, it's just, I love it. That knowledge is power, and I don't care what you do. Like, for what I'm doing, all having access to all of these professions, it's a comfort to me because life could get scary. I just went through a divorce, and
Mhm.
um kind of having all that knowledge on real estate, I'm very happy about that.
You really hit on something there that I think is really, really important, because people don't really realize enough what is involved in purchasing a home and all of the potential
True.
pitfalls that they could stumble upon.
Mhm.
That's where someone like you being involved in the process and helping them through that and helping them navigate that becomes so valuable and so important because you help them avoid problems like that with a seller or purchasing a property that maybe has issues that they might not be aware of. you
Right.
know it's really, really an invaluable thing to have someone like you on their team as part of that process.
Yes. And someone like you with Disaster Blaster, so if there is a money pit in there, it's like we call you, like get Matthew and the Disaster Blaster in there to fix it. So that's, like I said, good to have partners in the field, like colleagues like that, that I could call upon.
Yep, I agree 100%. I think you should have absolutely have a team representing you, and that should include a great local real estate agent, a mortgage broker, a home inspector, and a contractor that's able to look at those sorts of things.
Mhm.
But you're the first,
Right,
they need you right from the get-go. So
right, right. It's like
um
I could guide them and be the source of the source, and I kind of stop them, like, oh, let's not go there yet. Don't overwhelm yourself. Let's just stay here, because then they're like, oh, it's overwhelming. Well, let's not go through soup to nuts. We might gloss over it, but kind of stick to chapter one. Say,
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure you see this all the time too. I see it on my side. Sometimes the buyers want to move things quickly and skip
mhm,
steps, right?
right.
And those are important steps. So, you're kind of there to help them through that and check the boxes as they go through, which is good.
True. Right, right. And timelines. We just have a PFHA loan, which is run by the government. They're 2 weeks behind. You can't tell them to hurry up. So now they're just like, you need to extend 2 weeks. Well, that could hurt the seller. The seller could say, no, I don't want to. So knowing it would have helped to know PFHA was behind, perhaps a month ago or 2 weeks ago, not today. Yesterday, I found out, and the closing was supposed to be today, so you could avoid that pitfall. So what I did was share that intel with my team, like all our agents at Berkshire Hathaway, so they could be aware of that, because you don't want a seller to say, I'm not extending. I don't care. I don't care if they need more time. They have clear to close with their local lender, but the PFHA is 2 weeks behind. So that's something to know about. But that's where I didn't know that. But what I do try to tell a buyer or a seller, anything can happen. Like you have time frames, but they, through no fault of their own, you might need an extension down the road. And having that conversation, then they're not so nervous if there has to be an extension. It's nothing they did wrong. It's not like there's trouble with their finances. It's just a backlog.
Yeah, I agree with you. When I was purchasing my house, something happened with the financing. Something got delayed. You know how that happens, and the seller decided that they didn't want to wait, and I ended up missing the property. So that's what you're there, and you're able to help your buyers through, the process, so that those sorts of things don't happen, because those pitfalls do certainly exist, and without the guidance of somebody that has that experience and knows what can happen, people can run into those issues unexpectedly. So it's really, really great that you're there to assist them through the process and help them navigate all of that.
And reminding the other realtor, like I have the buyer in this case, so just reminding her, hey, it is a PFHA loan. We don't know if they're going to have a backlog. We're dealing with that. Like a VA might run into that, or an FHA loan. So um, just kind of knowing that and level setting with that agent. Oh, that's fine. That's fine. I'll tell the sellers now. Now you did it. Maybe there's going to be an extension, maybe not. But what did you do? You set the bar. So.
Absolutely, it is a very complicated process, and it's important to have someone that's able
Yeah,
to
it's
that
it's
that
not
knows those things. Yeah.
right. Being a realtor is not like, and this is the kitchen, and this is the bathroom, and look, here's your 2 car. You could see all of that for yourself. I'm there to, okay, do you like it? And kitchens and baths and resale value and What is the neighborhood like? The development? Are you the most expensive home in there? How are the taxes? What are you pre-approved for? And it's all of that, and that's what makes it stick together. And you try to take that all on your own for the largest investment of your life. I would never do it
Mhm.
again. Like I tried for sale by owner, getting sued and being pregnant. Oh, who would want that? And if we didn't do that, I could have got a lot more money for that house. So lesson learned, and now I'm a realtor.
Yeah, which is great. So you're there to help
Yeah.
them, and yeah,
Yeah.
it's all that experience.
Right.
We'll be back after a short break, but while you're here, don't forget to like and subscribe.
Would you like to take control of your future and build a business you can be proud of? We can help. As a Disaster Blaster franchise partner, our industry experts will help you unlock the potential of the $210 billion restoration industry. Disaster Blaster offers the most revenue streams in the restoration industry, training and support from industry experts, a unique model primed for your success, and more. Call our franchise team today to learn more at 302 242 1042 or visit us on the web at disasterblasterfranchise.com.
Welcome back. Today we're talking with Kathy Casarin with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services.
I know you pretty much do it all, but do you have a particular specialty? Home sellers, home buyers?
I do like to focus on home sellers.
Okay.
Being a listing specialist, you get buyers that way. I do a great job. I really have a passion for marketing, and if you follow me on Facebook, I know you do. But if any of our viewers here follow me on Facebook, you're going to see I'm very passionate about really staying on top of my game with technology wise with what I put out there for marketing and social media. So I get to do a lot of that when I have a listing. Now I'm competing with a divorced. They're going through a divorce, and I have to list their house. But I'm interviewing. I'm one of the agents being interviewed, so I'm like, what can I say? Let's say it might be a $400,000 listing. So I'm like, I have the luxury listing sign. And I put it on a nice pillar where, it looks like a lamppost type of thing with a hanging sign. So more high end, and now your home is
Mhm.
labeled luxury. Is the other agent doing that? I don't think they offer that. So just what else can I do to set myself above what other agents are doing? And I know I have a listing presentation and a buyer's guide that a lot of agents don't do. I was doing it since 2007, and it didn't
Hmm.
exist. They're like, what's a listing presentation? And people wanted me to sell it. Now they're selling templates of, not mine, but they're selling them. And I'm like, coulda, shoulda, woulda. But I kind of didn't want to get into that route with my presentation. I wanted it for me.
I know that you had showed me the presentation that you have in the informational packet that you have for your clients, and it's a tremendous amount of information. I mean, it really, really is very, very
I think we
helpful.
talked about this. I could just show it now, and then I know at the end we're going to give my contact information. So
Mhm.
if anybody does want a copy or both, they're free to you. I'll mail you a hard copy, or I could give you a link to download it, like a download free copy. So either way, it's free. However you want it, happy to. They're there for our viewers. So happy to give them out. I want to give them out like candy, right?
And they really are great because they answer a lot of the questions that they're going to have through the process.
Right.
Uh, so I mean, you really did a phenomenal job putting that
Thank you.
together.
And I try to walk them through, all right, you met the realtor. Here's what's next. Here's what's next. If it's a buyer, and then take the same route now with a seller. What are the steps? And that I'm there through all of it. I don't just like, okay, you're under contract. See ya at closing. No, I'm there through all of it. Um, and that's what I have the book doing, kind of walking them through that. They could always reference that. And I found it's very helpful. I've had sellers say to me, I didn't even know I had these questions, and you've already answered them. So that made me feel good, because that's what I tried to do. I'm like, let me put myself as if I was a seller. What would they have? What would they question? What would be a concern for them? And the buyer's guide, I recently showed a buyer, and I have something in there about, like, don't ask for a seller assist, perhaps. Instead, ask to buy down the rate, because the difference is, say, on a $300,000 home, if you have a seller assist for like a $10,000 seller credit, that's a savings of say $78 a month versus if you ask to buy down the rate, say the same 10,000 is going out of the pocket of the
Okay.
buyer, but now you're saving $248 a month. That's
Wow.
huge. And I've had the buyer say, "Why doesn't I've bought with other people before. Why has nobody shared that with me?" So I made sure that's in my new buyer's guide because that's huge for them to know. And then I say, now take it to your lender, because the
Mhm.
lender knows the specifics on their financing. I never, that's another thing, never wear somebody else's hat. Like I wouldn't want you to wear a realtor hat. You don't want me to wear a disaster blaster hat. I'm going to send you to disaster blaster, you as a viewer, an inspector, but I'm not going to, and I don't want an inspector to act like a realtor, like they're there to inspect the home and say, now talk to your realtor about what we found in the report. You don't want an inspector trying to say, well, ask for this or ask for that. Like they're not a contractor and they're not a realtor. They don't know. So you don't want them to kind of go there. So if your inspector say during the deal, you're a buyer and they're kind of referring you back to the realtor, that's good because that's my wheelhouse, and you don't want them misleading you, the inspector. It's not what they do. So and you don't want me telling you about mold that could just be black coffee thrown on a wall or something. So everyone, let everyone be their expert in their field. And
Absolutely, because it's a team
mhm,
that's helping you kind of across the finish line when you're
right,
you're
right.
and you're selling. So it's really really valuable to have everybody on that team.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and it works well. Like nobody really like who wants to who wants to wear my hat, and I don't want to wear a lender's hat either, so it works out well. But I explain that to clients. It's like I said, and I don't like to be, I'll be the source of the source, but if it's something where like the borough has to get called for them to find out about zoning, I like the client to call themselves because I don't want to relay it third hand and then something's misconstrued. Well, I thought you said this.
okay.
You Because they might get the question answered, but and I could relay that answer because I made the call for them. Am I really doing them a favor? No. Because now, based on that answer, they might have 3 or 4 follow-up questions that could have gotten answered if they're on the phone with this person that I tracked down at the borough. So I
Mhm.
like them. You want to kind of, and again, I'm not going to be the borough expert, but I don't want to relay stuff third hand. I want them to hear it right from the source, and that's worked well with me. And they're like, you're right. I had 4 or 5 more questions after they told me, I could build the house here at these setbacks or this easement or whatever. So it makes sense. And you're gonna see, you know me, I'm not lazy. It's not that I don't want to do it. Just and this is in your best interest. What's in my client's best interest? And there's that.
I appreciate that because quite honestly it's all about you directing them to get the best information and the best help that they can, and a lot of times those are things that you can answer, but if they're not, it's always good to bring in an expert, whether it be a home inspector or a contractor or the municipality
Sure.
to address their questions.
Yeah.
I'm sure that you get this question a lot. I know I definitely want to get this in, but um a lot of people are asking about how the current court decision is impacting the real estate industry.
The
I
NAR
wonder,
settlement, the National Association of Realtors had that like $418 billion settlement. Yeah, I've been doing buyer contracts for a while now, and I've not had one buyer complain about questioning or complain about it. It's a course of doing business. When you disaster blaster, if you're going to do a service to repair a flooded basement or mold, there's probably a contract that you have
Mhm.
that they sign, and it dictates your fees and what services you offer. That's where I like for buyers, it's going to become more mandatory. So I want to reach the masses. I think for that reason, open houses might become a great way for new business for buyers because while I'm at that open house, I'm going to have that buyer guide handy
Okay.
because they're looking to buy a house. And so I'm going to say, read this. This is what I would offer you as a buyer agent. And I'd have them go through all that. I could, if depending on the traffic in the open house, I could go through some of this with them. They're free to take it. And when they're ready to buy, maybe it's not that open house, but if they read this and see all that I offer as a buyer agent, they're not going to have a problem signing the contract.
Mhm.
And that's what I think, because they're like, well, what does a buyer agent do? But if you go through this book, it's a lot. Like, it's guiding them about the inspection, the appraisal, what to do, that the thing about the rate with the buy down versus the
Mhm.
seller credit, just count how to put the offer in. I had people, I won't even say where, but we went through the house, and knowing yourself, like, you're in it 18 years, like you said. I said, if you guys we have a long drive home. Well, they had a long drive home. So did I, but separately. That was my point. Um, I said, you have a long drive home. Really talk about this house. If you want it, you've got to come like 24,000 over asking. They had that drive home. They had the talk. They called me and they said, we're going to do it. We're going to go 24,000 over asking. They got it. They got the house. And I got told from the other realtor, yes, there were a lot of offers and they were very close to mine. So
Wow.
that's that. And I make sure I tell the buyer that, like, I'm not, the difference in commission over 24,000 here and there. It's not, that's not the way I do business. I want them to get this house. I know what it's worth. It had views of Elk Mountain. Like, you knew
Mhm.
it was worth more. You knew the demand was there. A house like this doesn't come on the market all that often, and it was perfect for them. And they listened and they got it. But it's good for them to know that there were 3 or 4 other offers very close in offer price as well. So,
Are you
um,
seeing the market being really competitive right now, or?
um, I do all I can to try to educate on, like, our interest rates are higher right now. You're not going to see them in the threes again, for quite some time. There's no, predictor as to when. You just try to educate them. Look, in the 80s, they were like, the interest rates on homes were the same as a credit card, like, almost 20%. So high. So historically, they're not that high, but let's just say they come down in a year, 3 points, or 2 years, right? Refinance. You still have the house. Because if you were to wait 3 more years, what are you doing? Are you throwing money away on rent? Are you in a house
Mhm.
that you're bursting at the seams on? Is it not in a great area for your current situation with your job? What's your story? So, basically, if you want to buy or sell, your home's not working for you right now. So buy the house you want, because if you wait it till rates come down and you want that house, it's going to be maybe 40,000 more, or if not 100,000 more than where it is when rates are high. So you're getting a deal on your list price, but your rate is higher. If you're getting a lower list price, you're a higher list price, your rate's lower. It's a trade-off, but that's where the glory of refinancing comes right into play.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense because I agree with you. I really don't think that we're going to see the rates going down too much.
Right.
It I
And
I
then,
think
I tell them, look, talk to your lender. What is the difference in price, or with this rate versus another point or whatever? It's affordable. It's doable. Do it. Buy the house, and then you could always refinance down the road.
yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
like you said, right? Who knows where rates are going? They could go up more. That's another thing. You want to wait for them to come down. What if they go higher?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we came off of a period where the rates were historically low.
Right.
So it's more of a kind of a normalization rather than the rates really going up.
Right.
They're kind of where they should have been, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it was post-COVID or whatever, like, yeah, they really were rock bottom, and I I was just buying clothes because I had no time to do laundry. I got interviewed on 16, and I said, I'm going on, I'm leaving my driveway, and I think I've got clients waiting to see where I'm going to jump on the house I'm about to list, because inventory was so low. Stuff like that. Just, it's, yeah, that was because we couldn't practice real estate for a while with COVID, and then the floodgates
Hmm.
opened and rates were low. Oh, business was crazy busy, and it was good. Like, I could adjust. It's like, let's go, Um, but yeah, that was, it didn't last. We're definitely not the same market as when, and it was discouraging because you'd have the same buyers lose out maybe on 6, 7 homes, and they listen, but people were waiving inspections, and like I never want to advise that. It's like if you feel comfortable, maybe they have a contractor in the family or something. If you want to waive, then I think we're getting into this with you don't want to you don't want to put a buyer in danger to get an offer accepted. I'll never do that. And so I lay out the groundwork for them. Like, I would still recommend an inspection. You tell them maybe there's some things you could waive, like maybe you could clearly tell where your property lines are, so you could waive that. Like you're not going to have it surveyed. Um, Different things like that. One way that a buyer can waive inspections is when I focus on listings. I like to talk to a seller about getting a pre-listing home inspection where I give them a couple inspectors to call to do the inspection before they list. Now that anxiety period of, well, what are they going to find? Like we've taken good care of our home, but you don't know when they start putting that moisture reader on the wall. Is there mold behind there? A carpenter bees, termites, radon high, things they're not going to know as a homeowner. The inspection is going to lay all of that out. And if you want to fix any of that before you list, great, let's do it. And then do your disclosure. We have a seller's disclosure they have to sign. It's about, I think, 14 pages. So having this inspection report, I could put it on our Flex system where the listing is, so it's accessible to any buyer. They could read through that, and it's a state licensed inspector. Yes, the seller paid for it, but he has to be objective. It's a state licensed inspection. Yes, the buyer can still have an inspection, but they might read through that and say, all right, we're not going to have an inspection. Or maybe they still do. But now the sellers kind of have that peace of mind where, well, what else could they find? I've had a home inspection done and the report's out there. I am not hiding anything. Everything's disclosed. Because probably the most anxious part of a deal is you've got all these showings, maybe 18 showings, and maybe 4 or 5 offers come into you, right? And you're reading. I'm going through all of the offers with the seller, and they pick one, they decide on one, or they counter on a couple of them, and they pick the one that in the end that is the best for them financially, closing date, contingencies, all of that. So now, because they had the inspection done, they do not have to worry about that. What could happen? Because 37% of deals fall apart because of the home inspection findings. Buyers get scared, especially if it's a first-time home buyer. They see this report, and a lot of it's just a laundry list. Like your roof is wearing according to age. But when they're going through 30-some pages of just details about the house, forget it. I don't want the house. I've had it happen, and I want to avoid that for them. So I had that talk with sellers, and I just talked another couple into doing it because it eliminate that scary part of your deal, that anxious period of I got to wait for the inspection, and then where's the report, and what do the buyers want? Oh God, or they want so much money off the price. It could, or they want to just walk away. Like avoid that with getting the inspection done before you list.
Very, very interesting. So, are you finding that sellers are doing pre-sale inspections more frequently, or
With mine, I'm finding it because I'm
okay?
an advocate for it, and I tell them, I said, I'm not getting anything for this. I'm just explaining the pitfalls of my experience and what I believe is the most anxious kind of period of the transaction, waiting for that inspection report and the findings, and what is the buyer going to want. I've had like, oh, we want $24,000 off the price. And sometimes they'll, like, a buyer will do that where maybe they come in with a great offer, but they want inspections done, and they pick everything apart to death, right? Asking for the moon. That's their plan, and it's like, well, they can't really do that if it's already been disclosed. Like, here's our inspection report, type of thing. So it kind of keeps the deal smoother. Emotions at a minimum. Or you want it to kind of stay like this. You don't want whoa through the whole process. So I try to keep it even keeled throughout every phase of the transaction, and that I found it just very helpful for people, especially like 100-year-old home. How's the septic? Isn't it better to know than have that unknown? Because getting a guy out to fix it or repair, now there's extensions, and all the sellers, we don't, oh, we want it to be closed by now. So you just point out all the headache and then let them decide. I think inspections aren't more than 550 for everything, for radon and everything. So, um, and that's just an average. So let's just say, 450 to 650 an inspection. But what is that saving you? Because a buyer could see a minor little fix. There, maybe it's a $200 fix. They might be in their head knocking 2,000 off the price. Mentally, that's where their value is. I got to fix this. I got to fix that. I got to fix this. But if you already know, because you had the inspection done, fix these little things. The less a buyer sees that they have to fix or repair, that bodes better for a seller.
Mhm.
'Cause markets are always changing. I also, we're in a time period now with listing. If I were to list a house now, I want them to list now or buy like right after the 4th, so buyers have enough time to get their kids in that home before the school starts, because they might, wherever they are, they might need to be in that school district for the fall. And that's a great buyer pool, and they're moving fast, those people, because they've got to get their kid in that school district for fall. So I say that to sellers, like, yeah, you have this laundry list. Let's not wait. Like, you have to bring in a crew or whatever. You want them done. You want these repairs done sooner, not later. Or, maybe there's one thing a seller couldn't finish. We just state that in the listing that this will be done by closing, but let's get it on the market. I'll work with them on timelines. Yeah, you got time. Or no, let's do it right. Let's do it in 2 weeks. Let's go. Let's go. And it's advice. It's always up to the seller. I just do my best to. All right, you want to wait? Here's what could happen. And you could lose this buyer pool. Or we're listing now. Great, XYZ, XYZ. That's what's coming next.
That really makes a lot of sense. Do you find that properties sell faster when the seller has a pre-listing inspection?
Yes, and less
Okay.
negotiation with inspections. I think once they still wanted their own inspection done, and they didn't ask for anything. They knew what was all right. We're good.
Okay.
That's just the person, if that's who you are, where, all right, that inspection was done, but I want my own, fine. But now for the seller, don't expect a surprise. Don't expect a big major problem, because you've had the report done. So yeah, I see that more deals stay together, and I
Okay.
see that there's less asked for with concessions. If anything, it just moves the process along. You could get right into the underwriting part of your loan. Let's move on to the next step. Inspections are done.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I hadn't really given a lot of thought to the pre-listing inspections.
Mhm.
But just hearing you break it down like that, I mean
Right.
it really makes a lot of sense for a seller to do that.
And for our inspectors out there, market yourself that way, that you do them. Like, of course, any inspector will, but let them, I market it for them. I have that right in my guide, like about the 37% of deals fall apart based on inspection findings. But, I think that's great if inspectors were to market that as well. Um, it's good for a buyer or seller to know that. Um,
Absolutely. And anything that gets you a quicker closing and less
right.
negotiations and less potential for issues. I know that, from our standpoint, we get called in usually when something is found in the inspection report.
Mhm.
And a lot of the energy that we put into it is explaining to the buyers, okay, they found some mold in the attic, or they had a high radon issue, or something of that nature. But if you love the house, like, these are all issues that generally can be addressed.
Right, right,
Rarely do we really see situations where something is found in a home inspection that really warrants, walking from the table.
right.
A
Yeah,
lot
and
of these
you
things.
you as you don't want to be an alarmist, and an inspector doesn't want to be an alarmist. It's just, here are the findings. And
Exactly. And here's what the solution looks like. Let's get that addressed. We'll resolve the problem, and you can, I mean, it's your dream home. Let's get this taken care of so that you can move in. Yeah. So
Even for you, with Disaster Blaster, if you have to go and fix something major, that's better for you to do without it being on the market, I would think.
Yeah, we do both. I mean, we do
Certainly,
a
certainly.
lot. Yeah, yeah. I mean, if a seller wants to address some issues before listing, that's great. You know, we're doing one of those projects now. Actually, they're getting ready to list it. You know, it's one of those things that once they have uh, a knowledge of an issue, you're better off, you know, just addressing it now rather than waiting for the buyer to find it.
Right.
Yeah. So I definitely recommend that anytime you
Like
have
mold, it keeps growing.
exactly. I
Doesn't
mean,
stop. Yeah.
if you're thinking of selling your house and you walk down into the basement and there's mold on the rafters, you know, deal with that now.
Mhm.
Don't wait for the buyer or the home inspector to discover it because, by then now it's something that your buyers are going to be concerned over. Whereas if
Mhm.
you just dealt with it, it would have just looked like a nice clean basement.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so I guess my question for you too is, so from the seller's perspective, how do you suggest they handle things when the home inspector does find an issue? So if the buyers bring in a home inspector and they find, let's say mold in the basement or something, you kind of help them through that whole process too.
Not a pre-listing inspection, right? Because that's up to them. Like, fix what you want, and if they fix, let's just first. All right, so let me do answer the pre-listing side first. They have the pre-listing inspection. If they found something big like the septic tank, maybe it had bacteria. I would say pay the $3,000 or whatever to get rid of the bacteria. Pay for it because now you could list a little higher, or you're not going to take that hit. Because if they read that and see bacteria in the septic tank pass, or I don't want to take that on. Oh, but you've now fixed that problem. That's a big thing. So you're going to see a better offer because of that. Now with you didn't have a home inspection, the buyers have one, and now they're presenting their list of requests on what they want to do, where, okay, seller, you have the choice to accept, reject, or renegotiate. They don't have to do a thing. So that's where you like to say, read the room. What's going on? Hey, seller, did we have 10 other offers where they're still interested, or did they go by the wayside and they moved on to another house? If we know we have backup offers waiting, go back to the buyer and say, I'm sorry, we're not offering anything. We're not
Hmm.
fixing anything. We're not, we're not going to repair anything. Um, Maybe if they had a 5,000 and more of a buyer's market, maybe they'd ask, say, $3,000 in repairs or six things to get fixed. I'm like, pick three. You try to split the difference with and see if that's good with the buyer. If sometimes it is, sometimes they're asking for more, um, and expecting less, of course. So I never would say to a seller, you don't have to do everything. Some sellers just want to. I'll take care of all this. I also tell a seller, you have the entire inspection report. You don't have to look at all of it. Just look at their list of what do they want. They could want three things done in that house, and you're going to overwhelm yourself as a seller if you look at their entire report, because they're seeing, oh, I could fix this, I could fix this, a missing washer on a sink. Like, that's not a concern of the buyer. It's Don't let it be your concern as a seller. What do they want? Let's look at their reply to inspections and address it that way. What I have been seeing a lot more in the market as is. Uh, um, Buyers can have inspections, but it's for their informational purposes only. Seller will not give money toward inspections, or if repairs are needed for FHA or VA, that's on the buyer, that at the cost of the buyer. The seller will not do anything, and that's clearly noted in the system, and then it's on the contract. Okay, so now if I have the buyer, I'm just upfront with them. We could still ask, because if it's something huge, like say mold they didn't know about, hey, look, they found black mold in the basement. I can understand you guys didn't know about it. Maybe it's an estate sale and they never lived there, right? Um, and here's the expense of that. You know better maybe on the cost of getting rid of black mold. So I would send them to you to perhaps get a quote estimate. And then it's like, let's go back to the seller and say, this was found. It's not on your disclosure. It's a big expense. Would you split the cost with us, or whatever the buyer wants to offer? And if it's exorbitant, I'll try to talk them down, because you don't want to upset a seller by presenting to them something unrealistic. But usually, if they're getting a quote from you, great. It's gonna Their request to the seller is gonna be right in line. It's gonna be a realistic request, and I would tell that agent, remind your seller that if they don't want to do this, it has to go back on the market now, and they have to disclose that there's black mold in the house. That's going to continue to grow. So that's where, even as is, I have an angle to try to get something fixed for the buyer, my client.
And see, that's where that experience comes in,
Yeah, right.
so
And
it's amazing.
I guess all right, just an aside, I've been watching The Sopranos a lot, so I'm coming at it with a boatload of confidence. Like, hey, I'm gonna do this. And I'm obviously not a threatening looking person, but kind of having The Sopranos in the background when I'm doing work, I'm like, yeah, we're gonna
Well,
do
yeah,
this. Listen to me.
yeah. Well, you need someone in your corner that's
Yeah,
willing to speak up and
right.
knows what, yeah, and is willing to ask for those things and knows what's reasonable. A
Right.
lot of buyers and sellers don't, which is why it's helpful to kind of be there to kind of guide them through that and everything.
Sure. And
Um, Sorry.
yeah, we're trying. You don't want to not overtalk. You don't want to be a yes realtor, like yes buyer, whatever you want. Yes buyer, yes buyer. You want to guide them with your experience, because that's what's worth their salt. It's like, sure, you want to offer that? Okay, I'll write it up. No, I'm going to talk to you, right? Like, and all of that guidance and education, like a newer agent might show a buyer like 30 some homes. With my experience, like 4 or 5, and we're under contract. Why? We're weeding out a lot. It's like, well, you said ranch. Now you want to see this 2-story. Are you sure? Oh, you're right. You're right. You're right. Yeah, we wouldn't like that. I had one with a religious. He couldn't. A door had to face a certain way, like east, if it was east, west, north, or south. I don't know. He couldn't live near a cemetery, and I'm like, you need to drive by these houses before we set up appointments, because he had a lot of stipulations, and he was a high price range, but we would drive up and he'd be like, no. I'm like, all right, we can't keep doing this. So I had to learn how to adjust to what was going on there. Otherwise, you don't want to waste your time. I want to use my time most efficiently. I don't want to waste your time as a buyer. What are you gaining by seeing 30 houses? It could get overwhelming. I had clients that I think they lined up 30 houses in 2 days for their son. You kind of say helicopter parents, and the son's showing up late with his girlfriend with a coffee. I'm like, don't you even want to see these houses? But it was really the parents and the parents' decision. So, but we went through. I tried to weed out as many as I could from that list of 30. Um, if let me send you the disclosures on them. Like, that would be, say, step one. Let's weed down their list if it's a big list. Here's the disclosures, and I'm sending them online. So, because the disclosures are, like I said, about 12, 14 pages. I don't want to print a disclosure every time I have a showing. You're going to burn through your copier and burn through trees. So I'll send it to them online if they're interested in a house. And maybe after they read the disclosure, they're not interested anymore. But if they still are, okay. Or sometimes if it's a big list, try to drive by some of these, and they'll knock some off the list. Because I said, just for time constraints, like, let's get this list a little more tight.
Yeah, I agree with you, because one of the things that when buyers go online and they're looking at all the houses on the MLS, you know, the houses look great, and and they're gonna compile a list, right?
Mhm.
But all of those home showings take a lot of their time.
Right.
It's their time. They're walking around this house. They've got to make themselves available to do that, and you know, it really makes sense that you're able to help them kind of whittle that down beforehand, so that they're only seeing the houses that they're really going to be interested in, because it's easy to get into that mentality where it's like, oh, I might like this house. Oh, I might like this house. Oh, I might like this house. And
I want
before
to
you know it, yeah, yep, yep.
I just want to see it. I know I can't afford it. No. 'Cause- and here's where I'll get firm. It's like the seller needs to know that you're pre-approved. And if you're not pre-approved for that amount, it's like no ticky, no laundry. That was a Jack Nicholson line, and I think the Irishman or something. But no ticky, no laundry. You don't have the pre-approval to see a $400,000 house or $600,000 house. I'm not making that appointment.
Mhm.
My seller doesn't want tire kickers. They don't want, somebody coming through the house. Now they have to ready their house up, get the pets out, get the children out. They have to get out of the house for a showing, and you don't have the funds to buy it. That's not fair. That's not fair
Yeah.
to anyone, and it's a waste of my time because you can't
Mhm.
buy it. So,
Yeah. But even more than that too, it's I always relay it from the buyer's perspective with that, right? Like buyers are gonna, I can understand, saying like, oh, I would like to see this house or what have you. But a lot of people don't realize how often buyers want to look at properties that are outside their price range just out of curiosity. And for the buyer, that's a huge negative because they've looked at a house that they may not be able to afford, and now they're looking at houses they can afford. So I always kind of, explain to people, you don't want to color your perception by looking
mhm.
at things out of budget. Focus on what you can afford and find the perfect house that is in your budget, because it's really, really easy to get in that mentality of, oh, but I really love that kitchen in that mansion, you know.
Yeah,
So it's from their standpoint, I always stress that it's there's a lot of value to the buyer to kind of constrain that.
right. Stay in their lane, because yeah, it will. They'll want what they can't have, and I don't want to. I don't want anyone house poor. I don't want anyone to overpay for a property. I always back it up with here's comps. Yes, if you were to sell it, you're paying more than asking, but look at the comps. Like it keeps going up in value. Houses that are similar, so I could do my best to educate them that they're making a good move. A co- a- I want to instill confidence in them and back it up with facts, and that's where you look at the comparables and what's going on in the market. I'll have people ask me, well, how's the area? Is it bad on crime, or how's the school district? And you never want to answer that like from my opinion. I direct them to websites where, well, you could go here and see the SAT scores for like that high school, or if you when you're looking at the house, like there's a tab there for crime rate, and you could see, is it are there robberies? Are there anything going on in the neighborhood? If there is crime, what type of crime? I again, source of the source. You don't want me to say, "Oh, that's a horrible area. You don't want to live there." Like now, what am I doing? Steering, which is illegal.
Mhm.
So, I've never gotten caught in that trap, and I won't. It's like, well, what do you think, Kathy? I'm like, I think if you look at this,
Mhm.
look at your facts there, and you make the decision. Do you want me to put that school district on your in your search parameters of what I send you?
Yeah, and that's all about being a resource. You know where to direct them to kind of look at those things. Whereas, a buyer that was looking to buy without a realtor may
Right,
not know where to look to answer those questions.
right.
So that's extremely important, I think. Um, what would your number one tip be for sellers in this current market?
Use me. Yeah, my listing guide. I think a pre-listing inspection is great because uh, it's softening. It's going like a teeter totter. So it's a seller market, buyer market, seller market, buyer market.
Okay.
It's a little more. It's not seller market. I could ask for the moon. It's a little more teeter totter. So get your ducks in a row. Fix those little things that are wrong with the house. Get the pre-listing inspection. If there's minor things or a major thing, get them fixed before you list, and then you can ask for more money on your asking price. So I would say let's stick with that inspection as number one. And note now, if you list now, everything's green, lush. If you have an in-ground pool, it's open, it's operational. If you had to list in the fall, get an inspection done on your pool so you could say,
Nice.
look, we're in October, the pool's closed up, obviously, but here's an inspection report that was just done. And they have the guy's name. So if everything was operational, they could go off that guy's report and
Yeah.
hopefully puts them at ease that they're buying a house with a pool that's in working order, because you don't want them opening up the pool in October to see that it works. So that's where I'd say, all right, if you can't list till October, let's get that pool inspected, because you can't, you want it done, you want it inspected while it's open and operational, obviously. Same with photos. Like, let's get photos of the pool before you close it up.
Those are
All of
great.
that was tailored to inspections. So I'm seeing inspections are important for a seller right now.
Okay, those are great tips, really. I mean, I wouldn't have thought to do that with a pool.
Well,
I,
I've got a pool in my backyard, and my house is going to be on the market, so I've got that.
okay.
Even if you're dealing with a divorce, and maybe I might be moving out before it's listed, I'm making sure I have hey, spouses, I'm making sure I have a listing contract signed with, it will be listed by this date. And believe me, as a realtor, consider me a client right now. We wear many hats. I deal with divorces. I'm a therapist. I'm a marriage counselor. I'm a pet service. Like, there's many hats we wear to try to keep a comedian. Right? There's many hats we wear to keep it happy. But for me, to protect me and any other person going through a divorce, if you're leaving the residence, you don't want it where, oh yeah, we said August or July or June, but maybe November. No, protect yourself. Make sure you have a listing contract signed with, it's going to be listed by this date. And now, if I have to move, not have to, but if I find a place, I know it's going to be listed. I protect it myself. And I'm saying, I'm sharing that with you because that's going to affect a lot of people selling, divorce or whatever's the case. It's something to protect yourself.
That is really valuable advice because but this is why people need somebody that knows these things,
Mhm.
because a lot of these are things that you wouldn't ever think of, but
Right.
I could see that, somebody in a divorce, agreeing that they're going to sell the property, and that just keeps getting delayed and delayed and delayed,
Mhm.
by the other party. So, that's really valuable.
Right.
On
And that,
along,
and then I would tell them to, all right, here's your situation. Talk to your attorney, or talk to a real estate attorney. Maybe they don't have one lined up yet. Talk to somebody, before you take a step to leave the residence, or whatever whatever their story. If I have to send them to a lender, disaster blaster, or an attorney, I want them to feel confident that I'm protected. Like, I might have the opening spiel on get that listing contract signed by a certain date, but maybe theirs is really layered, like their divorce or whatever's
Hmm.
going on. Talk to an attorney. Let him back up what I'm saying to you. I'm guiding, but I'm going to refer them to an attorney, because their divorce attorney is going to know,
Yeah,
obviously.
that's really great. Um, Along those same lines, what would your number one tip be for buyers in this market?
For buyers, I want them pre-approved before we start listing, and demand that, like, and what I say to them is, a seller won't let you see a house unless you're pre-approved. It doesn't mean you have to use that lender. It's a range of houses, but we have to have that letter. It's not like, well, I want to see the house and then I'm going to get pre-approved. No, sorry, I won't do that as a professional, and I'm going to make appointments. I'm not going to tell a realtor that they're not pre-approved yet. I don't do business that way. You want a professional. A seller doesn't want to waste their time. I don't want to waste my time. And especially in a market where homes can still go pretty fast, you want, as a buyer, to be pre-approved. You want to be ready to make that offer. You don't want to hear, well, I can't do your pre-approval letter till 3 more days or something. Now you're going to miss, because what seller is going to accept an offer from you, even if it's say 20,000 over asking, with no pre-approval? I could say I'm not for $1 million. Do I have $1 million? No, and I'm not going to get a pre-approval. So that's where when you start giving scenarios to a buyer, you're right, that makes sense. You're right, that makes sense. I'm not asking them to do something that is just frivolous or because I said so. I'm going to have reasons why it's in your best interest to do this. And I think through this hour, we've backed up a lot of that.
Yeah, I mean, my gosh, I know we had originally planned to talk for 30 minutes, but
Yeah.
this is so much information and such valuable information. I think that it's really really useful to anybody that's planning to sell or buy a home. So I really very much appreciate your perspective and sharing all of your expertise with that. Um, Before we do go, I would like to get some information from you for what's your best contact information to be reached by prospective sellers or buyers if they want to speak with you or list or buy a home.
Sure. My cell is 570-351-1444. You can call or text anytime. If I'm not available, I won't answer till I'm available. But I always tell them, if you have an inkling, a real estate itch, scratch it, text me. I'm very prompt with response if I don't answer live. However you're comfortable, email or call me. My email is Kathy, Kathyc, as in Casarin, sells, SELLS, @gmail.com. The Berkshire Hathaway website is bhhspreferred.com. And there's a link right to my information and my profile. So you could read more about me. And as I've mentioned before on those 2 books, if you are interested in either of those, feel free to text me or email me and say you want it like a PDF version of it. If you want me to mail it to you, my cost is totally free to you. I will ship it out in the mail to you, and it's yours.
That is amazing, and to be able to get it as a PDF, I think is a really awesome because they can save that in their inbox, and if they're going to buy next year, they'll
Right.
have it right there to pull up, because it'll help them right through the process. And then what is your service area? What area do you work in?
I'm licensed in all of Pennsylvania. I seem to be getting a lot of referrals. I have a girlfriend that I went to college with. She's down near South Jersey, so I'll get referrals from her from there because they're looking to buy up this way. So that's great. But primarily Lackawanna County, you're like Wallenpaupack area, Pike Wayne, some of Luzerne, but definitely probably my concentration is Lackawanna County. I live here, so I think you get most of your business there, but open to anywhere. And if I can't handle it, I will work with you to get you referred to a very, very like-minded realtor, and I'll stay on top of them to make sure you're taken care of. So
That is great. Thank you so very much for joining us today and answering so many questions. This real estate market is very exciting, and Kathy is able to help you navigate the process so that everything goes smoothly. I really appreciate that personally because buying or selling a home is a complicated process, and you need a team in place that can help. And Kathy is a great person to have on that team. And be sure to check out her guides for home sellers and buyers for some great information to help you through the process. Is there something you would like to hear about? Please email us at disasterpodcast@disasterblaster.com and keep an eye out for future episodes. And please visit our website for a ton of great content about property damage and the home buying process at disasterblaster.com. Thank you and see you next time. Would you like to take control of your future and build a business you can be proud of? We can help. As a Disaster Blaster franchise partner, our industry experts will help you unlock the potential of the $210 billion restoration industry. Disaster Blaster offers the most revenue streams in the restoration industry, training and support from industry experts, a unique model primed for your success, and more.
Call our franchise team today to learn more at 302-242-1042 or visit us on the web at disasterblasterfranchise.com. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And while you're here, check out our other great content.